Welcome, everyone. My guest today is lead analyst Logan Motoshami to talk about how the stock market and housing interacts in wealth creation. It's going to be really interesting. And we are in person in the studio, so that's exciting. Logan, welcome to the podcast.
It is good to be here. And Sarah and I had our first foosball fight last night at an event, and she won because I scored on myself 3 times.
I will take it. Yes, you did. You did score on yourself several times. I'm not the best at foosball. Let me just say
that was the first time I ever played. So.
Man, and he scored first. Anyway, at least I came out on top. It was fun. That was a great event. We were with American Pacific Mortgage.
Yes.
Very fun. So, okay, let's get into this topic. This is a little bit different for me, like talking about the stock market. So explain what you wanted to say here about that.
So, the economic data has firmed up a little bit. Mortgage pricing hasn't had this sharp reversal on the economic data. And there's just a lot of talk that the upper income households and the stock market is keeping consumption going, right? People can withdraw money from their brokerage accounts and pay for stuff. But what does that actually mean for the housing market? And it's an interesting non-correlation, I always thought, because a lot of people say, well, if the stock market goes down 20%, people will pull back from housing. We've had many 20% bear markets in the last, I would say 10 to 11 years, even in the last decade, COVID, what we saw in 2022. But for housing, the economy stays better, right? It keeps rates more elevated. But the correlation with equities, whenever stock market fell in the past and rates went down, housing demand always kind of picked up a little bit. So I understand the logic that some people say, well, you'll have more money to put in your down payment. But to me, over the last 14 years, since qualified mortgage has been put into place, every curve that we've seen higher or lower in demand has really moved off of rates, really moved off the 10-year yield more than anything else. And even when there is a bear market, we saw that COVID, not COVID, but the Godzilla tariffs, 10-year yield went down, demand picked up, and with tons of chaos this year. A lot of people said, well, will anybody fill out an application to buy a house? I mean, literally, purchase application data has been positive year over year, the entire year, pretty much, and by double digits for about 20 straight weeks. So I understand this correlation on, people think the middle and upper income classes are holding the economy afloat with their spending. But for housing, I always still think the 10-year yield and mortgage rates matter more. And in this kind of environment, we've seen, where the 10-year yield has come down, mortgage rates have finally broken under 6.64. We've had positive forward-looking data for the first time in consecutive weeks, better than what we saw earlier in the year, that I'm not that big of a believer in that kind of wealth creation and being a big part of the housing market. I've just seen general housing market trends move off of the 10-year yield more than anything else.
I also think, that's assuming that people even have any stock, have any say in the stock market, are building any wealth in the stock market. So yes, if you have luxury clients, absolutely. Baby boomers, Gen X is probably, if you have younger clients, they may not have anything in the stock market, and they may never have anything in the stock market. That assumes your clients have a certain amount of money or a certain kind of job, or, there's tons of people who own houses who don't have any stock market wealth.
It is. I think one of the stats a lot of people say is that the exposure to the U.S. consumer or U.S. household for stocks are at the highest levels ever out there. And the stock market is pretty wild, right? Stocks can move 5-10% in a day, where the housing market it's not that liquid. It's very sticky to the downside. The existing home sales, median sales price up 2% year over year, which actually brings me to another topic. Michelle Bowman, one of the switch over to Team Logan, labor over inflation. She was talking about, I'm a little bit concerned about, home prices now, single family construction prices and rates are elevated and supply is picking up. For me, it's just like the Fed should just not say anything. If home prices fall, and I said this, like literally home prices were up 2% year over year, and people are, this is a Wall Street thing, I think, where everyone says, well, the wealth effect, people aren't going to feel wealthy enough and they might not purchase goods and services like they used to because home. I was like, guys, it's literally up 2% year over year. What are you all talking about? So I think the Fed needs to like never say that ever. I'm not a fan of the Fed saying, hey, home prices are falling, we might need to do something. I can understand if there's massive foreclosures and underwater mortgages and, it could create a very unhealthy economy, and none of that's happening at all. And so that should not be part of the. It's like when Jerome Powell said, "Well, the housing market was in a bubble during COVID." No, it wasn't. We literally just had too many people chasing too few homes, and prices escalated out of control. And if you are prices follow sales. The crash happened in 2022. And it's like almost 2026 now. So in a bubble, you would see an escalation of inventory. You would see prices fall immediately and prices go back to where the bubble started. No, not in the national markets.
I love the way that you define bubble there, because I do think people feel like when things just, when prices escalate, that's a bubble. That's always a bubble. And what you just said was like, no, it would be a bubble if you saw inventory escalate.
I mean, to me, the history of bubbles, they don't usually in the same sector back to back in recent history. That's very well noted. I still think there's this storyline of Housing 2008 that generates so much attention, and it's just been fraught with some of the least talented human beings we've ever produced in the United States of America, and they all have YouTube channels now. So, Lord have mercy, we have collected 14 to 15 years of absolutely our most talented people out there in calling for national home prices to crash, and it just never happened. And by the way, just what I want to remember, I remembered everything, and I've created a database of myself of how wrong you guys have been, and what will it take, and will you even be alive to even see your original calls? And I guarantee you 99.9% of you will not be alive, because you're so off for so long and it didn't work. But for grifting, very, very effective.
Very effective.
Doom porn works. Everywhere we go, we always say doom porn works because it generates, if it bleeds, it leads. I'll generate all this. But
okay, 2 comments. First of all, you have a lot of excess free time if you are categorizing everybody's bad takes for the last 14, 15 years. That's number 1. Number 2, okay, so Michelle Bowman said that, but what action would the Fed take if they're seeing that? And would that be beneficial to housing, even if you don't agree with her motivation?
What I said when I saw that statement, and I retweeted, I said, if you want to say that the labor market is weakening because of elevated rates, how many times have we shown that residential construction chart? We're like, it's never a good thing when this starts to fall. Right. And traditionally speaking, the Fed tends to ignore it. They tend to say the economy is great. We don't have to worry. By the way, another Fed president said something really hilarious. Barkin, we have to have age limits on Fed presidents. He said rates went from 4.375 to 4 1/8. You know what that means? We're going to see some massive hirings out there. It's like, what? This is like Mary Daly last year, who said the Fed, we've cut rates and then we've seen the builders come out of the woodworks. Homegirl, what? Permits are at recessionary low still.
Oh, what? No. First instance of a homegirl in this podcast. Okay, but wait, go back to your original point. What would they do? What would Michelle Bowman do? And could that still be good?
I don't believe they target at least the existing home sales market. But if you want to say we need to be a little bit more dovish, and if mortgage rates go lower, we don't need to, be so hawkish in our statements, because to me, it's just very hard to get mortgage rates under 5.75.
Right.
It's like a lot of people ask me this, like, are all the Fed rate cuts priced in? Pretty much if they get to the corridor line, that's neutral policy. So for everyone kind of thinking about this, in the last decade, November 8th, 2018, the 10-year yield hit 3.24%. Spreads were fine, nothing abnormal back then. That got you 5% mortgage rates, but that was zero interest rate policy. Here, the Fed funds rate is, even if you're pricing the curve to neutral, which is 3 or 3.5, it's really hard. Like, we have had so much good news priced in that if she comes out and says, listen, the labor market, construction workers are losing jobs, specialty trade are losing jobs, manufacturing are losing jobs. We believe we get short-term and long-term rates lower. We can help, ease that. Not like the quarter that Barkin said. Oh my Lord, homeboy was just like, we're going to start hiring people like crazy. You imagine like a business says, hey dude, Fed just cut a quarter. Let's get it out. Let's print out and let's get some people hired. And man, the Fed, see, this is the problem with the Fed. They're a little bit out of touch, right? They're kind of academics out there. So they say things that they don't even understand. And then 5 minutes later, he's like, the Fed communication seems to be a problem. Look what you just said 10 minutes ago. Come on.
Like, are you part of the problem here?
So back to Bowman. If you get rates at least down to 6, it gives you a fighting chance, because the builders have a lot of completed units for sale, and they're just not going to be coming out of the woodworks and issuing a lot of housing permits in this kind of environment. So I understand it, but I just think they should leave the home price thing out of it, because if you want to say that we need higher rates because home prices are escalating out of control, I get that, right? February 2021 here, but your price stability and employment, right? You should just stick to that. And it's kind of like what Trump keeps on saying, we need lower rates to balance the budget. No, lower rates. That's not going to work. If you want to say the labor market is softening, and we believe lower rates can help the labor market, that's what the dual mandate is, right? And it's kind of like foosball. We were playing dual mandate, ball, whoever's going to win. Have it like that. Leave the fear of, well, home prices are falling and they can no. If you want to talk about single family construction, remember, what do we say about higher rates in 2022, right? We needed higher rates because back then we were already at 6% and rates were falling back to 5. I was like, this is not going to work. And think about it now. Think just now that we're in 2025, we're heading to, imagine if rates got to 5% and everyone was okay with that. We would have not had the inventory growth. We would have had the builders on their ass. That's what it was. That was the statement back then, 3 different times that year. What are the builders doing? They sell homes as a commodity, right? And now they're cutting and they're making deals. That's good for the buyer. Now, of course, that's demand destruction. What does that do? Housing permits are at recession lows, but you don't want to live off of that. But I think there are times you want to make sure that monetary policy can balance out a sector of the economy that needs it. But Bowman talking about that, not the biggest fan. Labor, you can go for, but her home price comment surprised me.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned Trump, you mentioned tariffs. So we have to talk now. We are recording this on Friday morning, so anything is possible between here and Monday. Really, between here and the end of the day. But
yeah, when we were playing foosball, he put tariffs on furniture.
So this is what
kitchen cabinets or something.
We have to talk about this because it did seem like I was asking at the time. I was like, it seemed like a very random list. Like, does one country do this? Like, why are we putting tariffs on kitchen cabinets, upholstered furniture?
I think some of the tariffs that were announced last night goes into the 232 section thing. But I mean, my first thought is that Trump probably thinks he's going to lose. So why not just put tariffs on everything?
Lose what?
Lose the court case. Supreme Court case. That's coming up soon. It's like, I wouldn't be talking about national security on stuff that, can make my case go worse. So there's a part of me that just says Trump got the word that this isn't going to pass. So I'm just going to tariff everything. I'm going to tariff every Godzilla doll everyone has and everything, and just like whatever. And then I'm going to have to force and get it and send money back to everyone because the tariffs are illegal. See, that's the thing with national security, is this like we're tariffing bananas. We're still tariffing bananas. I was like, why do we need to tariff bananas? But I mean, in this case, there's a part of me that thinks that, he knows he's going to lose, so he just loves tariffs.
He does love tariffs. I'm trying to think, like, if you're trying to remodel, or if you're a builder, like the kitchen cabinets is going to sting, the bathroom sinks, I think, were on that list.
Oh man, I'll tell you, there's a lot of husbands out there that are probably saying, yes, tariff, yes, save me money. my wife wants to do all the kitchening back, so tariff everything, let's postpone that.
I hadn't considered that option, that angle of the husbands being like, no, we don't need to redo the kitchen right now. Tariffs. That's so funny. Okay, well let's get into the tracker a little bit, right? What are you expecting to see this week? Last week, you really focused. You broke out mortgage rates, obviously, and you talked about inventory. What are you looking for this week?
The tracker's going to go back to normal now, but I'm hoping to see if I get right. If we get a little bit of inventory growth, then we recapture the highs in inventory. So far, I've been wrong on that. Inventory growth, a lot of things have slowed down since mid-June, and that has stayed its course. And it's still staying the course right now, but I just didn't quite buy into the peak, right? Not much is happening right now, but usually in the last 3 years, October and November have been the peak of inventory. And even last year when rates were going lower and demand started to pick up, we still had to be inventory. Now, this is maybe my bias of the chef kiss, right? Rising sales, rising inventory, price growth doesn't get out of control. That's my own bias out here, probably why I want to see inventory growth pick up just a little bit before the seasonal decline.
Okay, well, you know what? That works for me. Anything else that's coming out? What's coming out next week?
Well, here's the one thing. A lot of people are talking about a government shutdown.
Oh, yes. I was going to ask you about
Okay,
that.
so if we get a government shutdown, we're going to get no data out there. So there's going to be no jobs Friday or anything like that. So if it does happen, we're going to be like looking at private data at that point. The government isn't going to provide anything. And also, some government functions like FHA, gets condo approval, stuff like that. Those will be delayed. So that's a toss up. We'll take it whatever happens.
Yeah, it's always hard on the government shutdown because first of all, you never know if they're going to make a last minute deal and it's going to go through and all of that talk was for nothing. Or on the other hand, or if it could go for a while. And in this instance, as we talked about yesterday, Trump said that he will go ahead and fire people, not just put them, what is it, like
paid leave.
So then you go, okay, well, if that goes on for any length of time, how does that affect something? I hadn't even thought about the data. See, I mean, you're thinking about the data. I was thinking about other things. So, but it's hard to talk about it ahead of time because literally it could be, 1 minute to midnight and they make the deal.
Well, who knows? Sunday, we'll have some more information, Bobby.
We'll have some more information. Thank you so much, Logan. Thanks for being in the studio, and we will talk to you again soon.